flowering season here in South Africa, and today we're going to be looking at 5 tips to make sure that you have a successful flowering period. We're going to be concentrating this conversation about the outdoors, and while in South Africa we do have varying different sort of climates within the summer period, there are some themes which we can drive through to sort of every individual grower. And I'm joined today by Luke, who's going to be helping us a bit with the flowering information. So Luke, in South Africa, we're blessed with super powerful sun, long summery days. We're able to grow some absolute monsters. But, with sunlight, is it such a thing as too much sun, or what kind of environment are you looking for specifically related to sunlight when flowering outside?
I suppose, you're always wanting to hit those PPFDs. So, having them in the sun is always good. However, there are multiple factors that then have come into play here. If it's going to be in full sunlight for majority of the day, you've got to make sure that she's got enough water, that she's drinking, she's got enough nutrition. There's a whole bunch of factors that come into that. But a little bit of shade when it's extremely, extremely hot in some places and parts of South Africa. I know a little bit of shade definitely can help.
Yeah, a little bit of shade, a little bit of like 10 or 20% shade net in some of the really hot spots is the only way you're going to get through. And I suppose it's more too little sun than too much. The more sun, the better, the bigger the nugs. And yeah, we hope everyone's feeding those ladies.
Yeah, 100%. The next thing that also then falls under that, we were talking a little bit about what's happening underground and with the roots. Your soil and your mediums that you're using, or a lot of people like to plant straight into the ground. A lot of people also like to grow in pots. What would you say your go-to soil medium is? Do you do any amendments? How often are you feeding? What is your regime for outdoor?
Yeah, some big points. So I think if you're straight in the ground, what I'm finding this season is, even though I dosed sort of 2 full 200-liter barrels of compost, I'm still seeing deficiencies left, right, and center on the couple plants I have in the ground. So I'm feeding with a bit of bottled newt, but that does get super expensive super quickly. So I've targeted the 1 or 2 that are looking most yellow, and I'm feeding a bit of bottled nutrients. But then as per actually Luke's suggestion, I fed a whole bunch of worm castings a couple days ago. So worm castings is always a winner. It's cheap. You can just sort of pile it on top. I made sort of a well around each plant, filled it up, watered it heavily, and I think that's really going to help the ladies in the ground. And then in the soil, I'm growing some specialized mediums this year. I've got some Orgasoy Lux, which I'm running. I'm running some Classic Craft. But as with all of them, once again, I'm going to be dosing worm castings. And also, I also find if they are in material grow bags outside, they are drinking and evaporating at an absolute unit. So to try and counter that, I'm also something I haven't really used that much in the past, but I've sort of made a thick kind of 10 centimeter cap of alfalfa mulch on top of each of the pots. I fed that with some synergistic microbes and some worm castings, and there's all sorts of white fungi growing on top there, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, I'm kind of, I am noticing that compared to the side pots, which I didn't put any cap on, that they were drying out a little bit slower, which is always a winner for the material grow bags, because yeah, I think watering is a massive thing outside. So Luke, how much water do you want to be giving? That's always a hard question, because it's not like, oh, I'll give 25 mils, but yeah. You're going to lose out on a lot of this very vital time. I mean, a lot of people will be in stretch now already quite well into flower. So what kind of tips can we give with relation to watering and I suppose feeding of water-based nutrients as well?
I suppose it sort of depends on what your flowers are telling you. That's something important, is to watch them and see what they're doing. If you do start to get deficiencies, tackle it early on. Make sure that you've got your microbial activity in your soil alive and kicking. You're not allowing it to dry out too much and die back. That's more for your organic style style growing, you always want to make sure that your moisture content in your soil sort of doesn't drop below 40%, I would say, because then your microbial activity and colonies start to suffer. With watering, like I said, it depends on the plants. Some plants, it depends on how big they are as well. We're feeding on average some of our outdoor plants at 20 liters, maybe more per day, especially on those super hot ones. But it's always good to monitor them. I would also say try and start your watering a morning, an hour after sunlight. Yeah, let the ladies wake up a little bit before and get hungry, so that when you do feed them and do water them, they drink quite exponentially. Feeding, then again, it also falls on what nutrients you are using. I always recommend staying within the schedules of them, but then at the same time monitoring, what your plants are telling you. It's extremely important to look at the leaves and what they're telling you, look at the stem, and if you do need to add in anything, get in there and get it done early.
Yeah, I think just a lot of people are often concerned about overwatering a lot of time, but I've generally had more issues overwatering indoors than outside. Like, it's so hot in South Africa in a lot of places that, you are going to need to be watering every day personally at this period, because too little water and letting those microbes dry out is going to be a fat negative on especially the stage of the growth.
100%. When it comes to pruning and training of your outdoor plants, what would you say are your go-to methods? Give us a little bit about what you've done in your garden this summer.
Cool. So I stay next to the coast in the Helderberg, super windy environment. So for me personally, a lot of bending and a bit of LST goes into the outdoor ladies during the during the growth period, the veg period. And then kind of coming into the summer period, I always am scared of powdery mildew. We have kind of high humidity here, fluctuations. We're in a basin. So those kind of micro factors make PM a big issue, which we'll touch on a bit later. But it also kind of ties into the techniques that I use. So big amounts of lollipopping, really not being too shy on the bottom of the inners of the plant, and then also preparing with some tie downs. Alternatively, you could be using sort of big chicken wire mesh to sort of make sort of cones around the plants to allow them to grow through, or potentially an outdoor scrog, if you've got the space to do it. But just kind of, as with, if the plant can be supported, it's definitely going to be able to produce larger nugs. And with the outdoor environment being sort of unpredictable, you could have a very windy night or a very rainy night, and now all of a sudden your plants are getting snapped off, especially as they start to get a bit more weight. So support, train, clean up so that you can see inside. It's all going to help on that IPM. And then also some spot defoliations, same as indoor, maybe a day 21 defoliation. Maybe as soon as you start to sort of think the plants are going to start flowering, do the lollipopping and cleanup. If you're already into the flowering period, day 21, day 45, those are good spots to hit maybe a bit of defoliation, always larger on day 21. And then besides that, just monitoring as much as possible and removing a leaf here and there if there's a bud being covered, but really not stressing them out too much. But our main issue, I think, with most growers is not the sort of training techniques. A lot of the time, sometimes you can leave an outdoor tree to really just grow on its aces outside. It's got the wind and the environment to strengthen it up. But we are at the mercy a lot of the time to far more pests and diseases. So pest management and disease management, especially heading into the mid to late flowering period, can really make or break a grow. Bud rot, powdery mildew. Luke, what are some popular IPM products that you're currently using, and just maybe a few tips or results that you've seen with relation to IPM and just controlling some of those diseases and pests?
So yeah, when it comes to IPM, I would say prevention is always better than cure. You rather want to try and prevent the problem rather than having to deal with it when it appears, or occurs. So staying on top of your pest management or your IPM regimen is essential. Some of the stuff that I'm using is synergistic microbes. So this is from your Kaya Farms range, the wetting agent, the synergistic microbes from them, and the EM5. I absolutely love those. I've been making use of a lot of the Margaret Roberts range, specifically the insect spray, the caterpillar spray as well.
Yeah,
if you've
great
got
one.
any trees, if you've got any trees that are growing near your plants and any of the overhanging branches, I'm sure you've had a node or something die off to a caterpillar eating it. So that's an important one. And then also just making sure that just in terms of molds and stuff like that, beneficial bacterias, I suppose, are a big one. The Sano Agri has come into play here. The AQSF and the AQSF and the Trichoderma is also a good one. Sure.
Yeah, I find that AQSF, it's quite difficult. Like, that's a heavy one on the prevention is better than the cure, because once you've got PM, it's hard for it to really take control. But if you've been building up a resistance with it over a long period of time, you will see a lot of a lot less sort of it pops up a lot less, especially with the PM. And it's also a nice prevention against bud rot, because it can be sprayed on flowers. But a lot of the time, it's really difficult to get something under control, or if it's sort of too far spread. And that's why it's important to know your products well and to not only think of them last minute. Hey, Luke, I think IPM is more important than a lot of people perceive.
Oh, 100%. It's almost essential. It's like us. If we know that we're lacking in this vitamin or this mineral, we need to make sure that we have or take some supplement to ensure our health and our immune system is at all-time best to fight off any negative bacteria, etc. And it's the same with your plants. So definitely IPM regimens and pest management is essential for any grower.
Amazing. Well, thanks guys to everyone who made it to the end of this episode. Thanks to Luke for all your knowledge and sharing all of your tips and tricks. So I mean, it's the most exciting time of the grow, the flowers, but it's also where a lot of issues can creep in. But we're nearly there. It's nearly time for all of that super amazing flower that you're growing in your garden to be reaped, and we're excited for you. And also thanks to everyone who made it to the end of the show. We really appreciate every one of you for watching all of these videos. Remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, guys, peace out.